Okaeri! Welcome back to my channel, Made Between the Pages. My name is Taylor, and today we're going to be doing my July TBR. So this is the first month in about 3 months that I'm not doing a readathon. So I don't have any prompts that I'm going to be following, and I'm not gonna lie, it kind of feels good to take a break from that type of reading. I'm looking forward this month to kind of going with the flow a little more. In this TBR, I do have a list of books that I really do want to get to, but I'm treating it a little lighter than in the previous months. I think it's important to just remember that reading can bring you joy, and it doesn't have to be goal-oriented all the time. So while I do have small goals this month, I'm keeping it a little more casual. The first couple books I'm going to talk about are the Japanese books that I'm going to be reading this month. The first one is Hanazakari no Kimitachi e, and this is a book I've mentioned on my channel. I believe it was in my mid-year book freakout tag. I wanted to finish reading this series or rereading this series this year. I'm not sure if I'm going to get around to it, but I really would like to. And I'd like to read this first book this month. This manga was released, I think, when I was in high school, and I read it in English at the time, and I loved it. But I found these beautiful special edition books secondhand, and they're heavy, the paper quality is amazing. And I really want to reread it in Japanese. If you know on my channel, I'm trying to increase my Japanese reading comprehension. My speaking is quite good, but my reading comprehension and my writing are not the best. So I try to read a Japanese book every month. However, I haven't been doing very good with that target. The last 2 months, I don't think I've read any books in Japanese. So we're gonna have to change that. This is about a girl, the girl on the front cover here, who goes undercover in an all-boys school. She disguises herself as a guy, and it's about their adventures, misadventures along the way. And while she's in the school, she makes so many different friendships with different types of people, and it's one of those books that kind of has a friend group who all has different personalities, and then when they come together, there's like this humorous element to it, and it's just so much fun. It's heartwarming. It'll make you really happy. So I'm really looking forward to reading this one. This second book you have definitely seen before if you've been watching my channel for the past couple months, and that is Tomo-chama Ononoko. I've mentioned this in the past couple videos because this is the book that I was planning to read, I think for the past 2 months as my Japanese book that month, and I still haven't gotten to it. But yeah, so number 2 in this series is my second Japanese book that I want to read this month. This manga is about this girl, Tomo-chan, and she, in book 1, she confesses to her childhood best friend and says, "I love you," and he friend zones her immediately and just kind of says, "Good, I love you too, BFFs forever." And so after that, it's kind of how their relationship develops. And again, it's kind of got that different personalities friend group vibe, like this is her best friend, another best friend of hers, and their 2 personalities are super polar opposites, and this girl as well. So they kind of all end up making a group together. It's humorous, it's lighthearted. I mean, how cute is that? So I'm just really excited to read this, and I'm going to make it a priority this month because I really do enjoy this series. The next book that I would like to read this month is actually a classic, and that is The Picture of Dorian Gray. This was on my tentative portion of my TBR for last month, for June, and I didn't get around to it in the end. But I really do want to read it, and I've been feeling the desire to pick up a classic recently. I don't know why, but that's the classic that I've been really itching to read for the past couple years. And I've mentioned on my channel before that when I was in university, I read a lot of Victorian literature and classics. And after I graduated from university, I took quite a break from reading classics. So now that I'm feeling the desire to read it again, I really want to, follow through with that. The picture of Dorian Gray, as far as I'm aware, is about a Victorian man who sees a portrait of himself, I believe, and he falls in love with it, I think. Is that Narcissus from Greek mythology? Well, anyway, I could be completely wrong with that. But I also believe the other aspect of this book that I know is true is that there's some kind of deal struck where the picture of Dorian Gray ages, but the actual Dorian Gray does not age, I think. So there's some kind of like psychological trauma that's going on in the book, I believe. But that's as much as I know. Maybe I butchered it. Let me know in the comments down below. But I am really interested to read this book. The next 3 on my list are books that I have had on hold at my library, and I keep extending and extending and extending the return date, or what's the word? Re-holding them? Renewing? English. Renewing the hold on them once the hold runs out, because I want to read them still. And there are 3 books I've been doing this to for about 2 months now, and I just want to get to them. And so the first one of those books is Dark Fever. I'm not remembering the author's name right now. Karen Marie Moning. And this book was recommended to me actually by my cousin. BookTube has really done some amazing things for me in my life, and one of those things is that it allowed me to connect to family members that I didn't know were readers. So we've both been readers in our personal lives and just have never talked about it together. And so that cousin recommended this book to me as like a really like fast-paced, you know, not necessarily high literature, but fun read. I believe it's a paranormal romance, not 100% sure, but I think that that's what it is. And I want something a little lighter and a little happier. I've been reading lots of heavy books, and as you can see from the manga I'm picking up this month, I wanted to do something lighter, you know, summer feeling. So I'm gonna pick up this book from the library finally and read it. The second one from my library is The Queen of Nothing, so the 3rd book in the Folk of the Air series. So this one I have again kind of redone the hold many times, and I am interested to read it, but I guess it just wasn't a priority for me. I did read The Cruel Prince and The Wicked King, I believe in March this year, so I think it was before I started my channel. It might have been in February, and I did really enjoy those books. They're not necessarily favorites, but I really did enjoy the reading experience, so I would like to close out the trilogy. And this one is like teeny tiny, right? I think that the length is minuscule, so it should be easy for me to knock out. If you don't know what the Folk of the Air trilogy is, I'm not really sure where you've been because it was like the biggest thing on BookTube recently, or in the past year. But it's about a main character named Jude, and she has 2 sisters. She is human, one of her sisters is, and 2 of her sisters, I think, are fae. I think. 2 of them are humans, and 1 of them is fae. And their fae father comes and murders their human parents and takes them into the world of the fae, and that's where they have grown up. And the world of the fae is not kind to humans. So Jude and her sisters have kind of dysfunctional personalities. They've grown up in a really harsh world, let's put it that way. And so Jude, the main character, her nemesis in their school is a cruel prince named Cardan. And neither of these characters are necessarily good people. They have, you know, a strong desire for power. But the book is kind of them navigating through the political machinations of the world. And it's good, and I really do like it. So I'm interested to read the ending. I've heard mixed reviews on the ending, so we'll see what I think. The 3rd one that has been pushed back at my library is Rage of Dragons. So for the past like 3 months even, I have had the 5th season and Rage of Dragons on like all of my TBRs. And I finally got to the 5th season in June, and I loved it. It was really, really good. So rather than go into the Obelisk Gate, which is the second one in the Broken Earth trilogy after the 5th season, I'd like to prioritize getting to Rage of Dragons this month. So this is by Evan Winter, and it's, I think, a revenge fantasy story, and I have heard nothing but amazing things about this book, and I'm just so excited to finally dive into it and prioritize it. While we're in the like high fantasy or epic fantasy portion of my TBR, I also have these 2 books, Red Sister and Gray Sister, on my TBR. I was hoping to finish Red Sister in June, but I didn't get to finish it. I did start it, and there's a reason this was recommended to me by literally every single person that knows me. So far, it's top-notch. But I haven't finished it, but I have a feeling that when I do, I will want to immediately go into the second book, Gray Sister. Now, I know that there has been some controversy around the author for these books, Mark Lawrence, on Twitter. I don't know the details of it, and to be honest, I'm not sure about the timeline, like when this issue happened, but, you know, I had already bought these books, so I had already had them in my possession, and I really would like to consume them. So if you see this and you become interested in these books, please do a little bit of research on the author and see if you feel comfortable purchasing his books. I believe that every person can make their own decision in that regard, but I just want to let you know that there has been some controversy out there regarding him. So just be aware of that if you want to, you know, purchase them for yourself. I also really want to read Jade City by Fonda Lee. All of my other fellow fantasy booktubers who've read this have said, Taylor, you must read this. Like, it is amazing. So, and it has been on my list, kind of like Rage of Dragons, for a long time, only less casually. So I would like to get to this one this month, if possible. My understanding of this book is that it's kind of inspired by old school, like, Chinese gang movies, if I'm correct. And it's a world where you can use Jade to get magical powers, I believe. And so it's kind of about like a cutthroat city combined with those powers, I believe. I don't know much more besides that, but sign me up. The last one in the fantasy group here, the high fantasy group, is going to be The Sword of Kaigen. This is another one that I started maybe a month and a half ago now, and I really, really enjoyed what I had read. But I ended up putting it on the back burner because I had a bunch of other books from my TBR come in from the library, and those were kind of on a strict time schedule, and I had to get them done because people were waiting. So I ended up putting The Sword of Kaigen down, which I have, you know, in my possession, so I don't need to, you know, have a time frame. Ended up putting it down to finish the other books, and I haven't been able to pick it back up yet. But I truly, truly think I'm going to love that book. So I really would like to pick that one up this month too. Something else that is new on my channel is going to be my decision to prioritize reading at least one book about Black joy on my channel every month. I don't think it'll be up yet, but I'm going to be having a review or wrap-up. I haven't decided if it's going to be a separate review for the Blackout buddy read that took place in June, and I did read the buddy reads for those. So after reading those books, you know, inspired by, or the catalyst for this buddy read was the Black Lives Matter movement in America currently. After reading those and listening to what my Black friends have to say, I wanted to make a change on my channel, which is where I can control what I consume and what I produce. I wanted to make a permanent change going forward, not just, you know, one buddy read and done. I've kind of realized that when I read about Black history or Black characters, it's almost always in the context of suffering or just reading about the struggles that Black people have gone through. And while that reading is important, especially for historical context, I want to shift my lens to reading stories about Black people having a good life, Black people succeeding, and not necessarily always being fraught with political sentiments, right? Because Black people are people, right? And they don't only exist in the context of political unrest, right? So I've decided that I want to try to read at least one book a month focused on Black joy or the Black experience in everyday life. The first book is going to be Black Girl Unlimited. I was having a hard time picking which book to read first. And then I was watching Monet over at Life as Monet. I will link her channel down below. I love her videos and her makeup is just so on point. But she was just had so many amazing things to say about this book in her video. She could not say enough good things about it. And so that kind of made my decision for me based on her recommendation that I would like to read this book first this month. The second one is Get a Life, Chloe Brown. Now, if you haven't kind of noticed with this TBR, I'm trying to do not just high epic fantasy, which is what my channel almost always is about, and while I never get tired of that genre, I'm kind of feeling the desire for a romance read. Who do I think I am? I don't fucking know, but that's what I'm in the mood for. And this book has gotten so many amazing reviews from everyone that's read it, especially after the sequel came out. People were kind of rereading the first one and it was in the spotlight a bit there. And I've heard nothing but amazing things. So I could really use some romance. Okay, this last portion of my TBR is one that I have every month, and that is my Retro Reads BookTube challenge. I will link the original video where I explain it in detail in a card up above, but I have a challenge on my channel where every month I pick a book out of this mug at the top here. I think I have 15 books in here, and these were all written and released before 2015. The idea for this was I had read an older BookTube favorite, The Remnant Chronicles, back when I just started my channel, and it was an unexpected favorite. I love that series. It made me realize that some of the series that I kind of missed before I was active on BookTube could be unexpected favorites. And I tend to read more new releases. I think most people get caught up in new releases. So I wanted to give myself the opportunity to kind of reach back into the archives and pick out something. So in here, all of these books are like BookTube babies, were super popular. Some of them I'm interested in reading, some of them I'm not, but I put them in there because I want to try to read outside of my genre in some way, shape, or form, and this will help me do that. Before I pick the one for this month though, no one's going to be surprised to hear this, I don't think, but The Name of the Wind was the first book that I picked in April. I still haven't finished it. Ah! Look, I read big fantasy books all the time, so I do not know what it is about The Name of the Wind, but I cannot sit down and read more than like 15 pages of that book at a time. And it's a library book, so I keep having to return it before I finish it. And so I actually had to return it 2 days ago, and I think 50% of the way through the book, or 45% finally, but for some reason I am moving at a glacial pace through that book. But I'm determined I will finish it. Eventually. Hopefully this month. So that one is on my TBR to finally finish it. Let's pick the new one though for this month. Let's see. Okay. The book this month is, Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertelli, released in 2015. That's not a bad one at all, actually. I'm not usually a contemporary reader, despite what you kind of see in my books that I've chosen this month, this is a very weird month for me in that regard. But I'm not usually a contemporary reader, so I wasn't really interested in this book. But it's gotten so much love, and I guess it's a month late because June was Pride Month, but hey, better late than never. So hopefully I will end up loving this book as much as everyone on BookTube seems to. I know there's a movie, but I haven't seen the movie either, so I'm truly going into this blind. I have had no spoilers for this book, so we'll see how I feel about it. So this is Editing Taylor coming at you later that night. I realized that I forgot to mention that I also plan to read The Way of Kings for the Storm Along 2020 reread in preparation for Rhythm of War that comes out this November. So I do plan to read that as well. If you haven't read The Way of Kings before or any of Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive, I'll link the Storm Along 2020 links down below in the description. And please, please join us in the buddy read. It's going to be so much fun. Guys, there is no way I'm going to finish this TBR. The Way of Kings itself is over 1,000 pages. Plus the other books that I mentioned in this video. Why do we do this to ourselves? Okay, so this TBR ended up being 14 books, and a large portion of these have a lot of pages, so I'm not thinking I'm gonna get all this done. She says as she, starts off the video saying it's gonna be a light TBR. I told you, who do I think I am? But this isn't surprising for anyone. My TBRs are always to the point where it's unrealistic. But I really do hope that I can get to at least a huge portion of these, because pretty much everything on this TBR is something I really want to get to. So prioritizing is going to be a little difficult, but I'll definitely prioritize the retro read because that's a challenge on my channel, and reading at least one of the books that I've chosen by Black authors. But besides that, I'll just be prioritizing, I guess, based on mood and how I'm feeling. Wish me luck! That concludes July TBR. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these books, what you think about them, and if there are some that you think I'm really gonna like based on my reading tastes, or some that you predict might not be my favorite. Just chat with me in the comments down below. But for now, I'm gonna head out. Jenny!